was still alone.
Well, I got my first typewriter, a Royal 10, when I was 14. It didn't work. I didn't know anything about them at the time. I just wanted to figure out how to take it apart and get this thing back to what it once was. As a kid, I've always kind of been involved with analog tech. We used to go to Blockbuster to rent the new VHS releases and things. You know, I'd steal my dad's cassette tapes out of the car. I also lived through the time of when the internet kind of became big and computers started to take over. And through all of that, I maintained an interest in reading and writing and taking apart little things and fixing them. So that kind of set the stage for an interest in typewriters.
Am I a ghost in someone's body? Am I a voice inside your mind?
I didn't get along well with my peers, so I never really discussed interests and things like that or mingled with people outside of school. And by the time I was getting into typewriters when I was like 13 or 14, you know, people saw it as kind of a weird hobby, but they were interested in it. One of the first people who had me fix a typewriter for them was the brother of one of my classmates who had an old Smith Corona that he found on the side of the road. And I fixed that for him on the lunch table in the cafeteria.
For the things you told me.
I love buttons and switches. There's a tactile element to it. There's something concrete and physical to everything that you do. You know that the medium that you're handling is truly there. It's something that you can interact with, you can directly change it, you can influence it. It's a very nice kind of organic medium that is entirely what you make of it.
How much I think I need you. So I write another.
The very first commercially successful typewriter was Soles and Glidden's typewriter in 1873, and they sold that patent to Remington, and that had the first QWERTY keyboard. That's where we get that today. And then around the 1910s, we figured out one good way to make a typewriter. It had to be a QWERTY layout, and it had these standard front strike ribbon machines. They were all kind of basic until IBM came around back in 1961 with the IBM Selectric that reintroduced a pre-existing concept of a single type element, and that changed the game for typewriting.
This is the best thing that's happened to typing since electricity. The IBM Selectric typewriter.
So rather than having all of these individual bars in the machine, you had one single piece that you could swap out that contained all the type on it.
Am I a ghost in someone's body? Am I a voice inside your mind?
Since I started in typewriters, I always wanted to have like the typewriter shop. I thought that would be really fun, really cool. I wanted this place to feel like some traditional typewriter repair shop that's been here forever. I get a lot of younger people who are interested in typewriters. It's something that maybe they've been around a little bit in movies and TV shows and they think is interesting. I get a lot of elderly people who just never switched over to computers. But there's also a lot of writers who love using a typewriter specifically for the reason that you can just sit there and write and you don't have to worry about anything outside of what you're working on. I also have a lot of business owners, doctors' offices, that kind of stuff, to use typewriters to fill out forms or send invoices and make documents. And then there are the people who are collectors, who like these really obscure antique machines, or they just like having a few around that they can use to write letters to family members or grocery lists or whatever. I work mostly with the mechanics and getting the machines working. I don't have a lot of the patience to sit there polishing all the time, but if people do want the restorations where everything looks clean and brand new, I will sit down and do that. It is definitely a difficult job. There's a lot of work involved and not a lot of people. So it's very community focused, work with a lot of people, make a lot of friends, and we all kind of help each other out. I think that these machines were made for a single purpose. They're made to type, and if they're just sitting there on a shelf, they're not fulfilling that purpose. So regardless of how old or how valuable a machine is, I have always typed on them. And I encourage other people to do the same because I think that is the best way to honor the legacy of these machines, and it's also the best way to keep them working. Lovely Tom Hanks typewriter that anybody can type on if they want. I sent him a letter during the COVID lockdowns, and we maintained correspondence for a little bit. He is most definitely as nice as everybody says, and he had mentioned that he was looking into getting rid of a lot of his collection because none of his family was really interested in typewriters, and he didn't want to leave them with a horde of 300 plus machines. So he was working with a lot of shops across the country to kind of offload his machines on them. Slowly but surely, all the shops in the country started getting one from him. Earlier this year, that machine showed up at my doorstep, and I was very surprised to see it. It's a wonderful machine. He's a very generous person, very kind. Everybody, from the dawn of humanity, has wanted to create things. You know, that's kind of what sets us aside from other species, is just our desire to create something, to have something that represents, you know, what we are, what we love. And I find a lot of people just kind of coming back to typewriters because there's a sense of permanence about paper and ink. And it's nice to have something that's, you know, physically something that somebody put their time and effort into making. And every letter is slightly unique in the way that somebody wrote it, the way that the ink hits the page, the characteristics of the way that it was created, because it's organic. There's only one copy, and there's a depth to that that just isn't really present in text or emails.